Welcome back to the Nerdy Grail, and this is a video that I've been meaning to do for a little while, but I didn't really know when the best moment to do it was. But I thought, seeing as Daredevil Born Again, the finale for that Disney Plus TV show, finished on Wednesday earlier this week, I thought now's the right time maybe to do it, because now I can include that TV show in the mix and give you a brief review. Since I didn't review each episode individually, I can sort of call it an overall review of that particular show. As you can see behind me, I've got WandaVision, Loki Season 1, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Moon Knight, Hawkeye, and Loki Season 2. Because the topic of today's video is I am going to be doing a ranking of every Disney Plus TV show from the MCU, from worst to best, at least in my personal opinion. So, like I said, this will be in my opinion. Your opinion will differ, and I guarantee there'll be some shows on this list that you'll think, why is that so low, or why is that so high? Because it's just my opinion, and everyone's opinion is different. Now, before we jump straight into it, I will just say a couple of ground rules for this. Now, my criteria for the ranking, there's 13 shows that will be in this tier list. Well, this ranking list anyway. And you're probably thinking, well, there's more shows than that. And that's because I'm not actually including every show. So I'm mostly just including the mainline shows that will impact the MCU in some way, shape or form. Or from what I feel will impact the MCU in one way, shape or form. So for example, two shows that are not on this list, well, it's one show but it's had a couple of seasons now, is I'm not including What If on this list. Yeah, I'm sorry for those who love What If, it won't be on this list. I have seen it, but I'm not including it. I'm also not including the little short series I Am Groot as well. That will not be on this list. However, I will be including Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man on this list. So, with all that out of the way, let me jump straight in to ranking the Disney Plus TV series for the MCU from worst to best, in my personal opinion, starting with number 13. Okay, and coming in dead last for me, in 13th place, it has to go to Secret Invasion, which came out in 2023 and ran from the 21st of June to the 26th of July in 2023. And oh my goodness, this series was a drag. It was the longest 6 episodes I think I've ever watched in my life. It was dull, it was boring. It follows Nick Fury, who's finally come back down to Earth now after being gone for such a long time, and he's there in order to investigate a potential Skrull invasion, that apparently the Skrulls have hidden themselves away, and now they are conspiring to take over the world and replace the population, and Nick Fury is the only one who can save it. No Avengers, just him. It's kind of like a spy action thriller. You know, think of like your Mission Impossible or your John Wick. Nick Fury's alright, you know, Samuel Jackson does okay for what it's worth, but it's just pointless. It's a silly series. You know, they bring Rhodey back into this and make out now that he's actually been a Skrull since possibly before the events of Infinity War, maybe going back to Civil War. You know, he's sort of a bad guy. The final fight looks ridiculous and silly. If I'm being honest, I don't remember many of the characters because this show was just forgettable, and it ends the same way that it begins. Nick Fury just buggers off again, so it's just entirely pointless as a series. It is a slogfest, dull, boring. I mean, need I say more? It didn't get a good reception, and there was major criticism at the time due to the potential use of AI to create its opening theme, which is ridiculous. So that's why, for me personally, Secret Invasion is bottom of the list at number 13. Okay, so coming in 12th place, we've got Echo, a series that came out on the 9th of January 2024, and was sort of a spin-off of then the Hawkeye TV series, because it follows the character of Maya, who was Echo, who was in the Hawkeye series, who at the end of the Hawkeye series shot Kingpin supposedly in the face, but it turns out it was in the eye. But yeah, it's her spin-off series where she gets to go home, and her plot is she's trying to reconnect with her family, her American roots. You know, yeah, it's an okay series, but if I'm being honest, it's the most pointless series of the lot. It's only 5 episodes, and they dropped all 5 episodes at the same time, and that says to me that they didn't have a lot of confidence that people would stick in, week out. So they thought, drop them all at once so people could just get it over with, pretty much. And that goes to show in the quality of the series, if I'm honest. The only reason it's not rock bottom is because I still like Kingpin, even though Kingpin is pathetic in this series. Absolutely pathetic. And the final fight, what final fight? There was nothing at all. Absolute garbage. But Maya as a character was interesting. I loved the use of her disabilities throughout the series. You know, the use of sign language and all. I thought it was really, really good and done really well. So I thought that was implemented well, which keeps it from being rock bottom. They did tease in the trailers Daredevil, because obviously Charlie Cox has been popping up here and there. Obviously we've got Daredevil Born Again, but he was there in episode 1 for a 5-minute fight scene, and that was it. Yeah, overall, it was a lackluster series. You know, from the start to the end of the series, very little actually happens or changes. So for me, because it's so forgettable and has very little impact, that's why Echo for me comes in 12th place on my list. Coming in 11th place, it goes to She-Hulk Attorney at Law, a 9-episode series which ran from the 18th of August to the 13th of October back in 2022. Now, I was really excited to see She-Hulk come to the screen, but unfortunately, they botched it. They absolutely botched it. It was far too comedic. She broke the fourth wall far too many times. It was far too silly. Some characters that were really hardcore, really tough, really cool in previous years, such as Emil Blonsky, the Abomination, back in The Incredible Hulk in 2008, was absolute laughingstock in this series. Terrible, awful. Obviously, Mark Ruffalo's Hulk was sort of made to be a joke. There was a major fourth wall break towards the end of the series where She-Hulk literally comes out of the Disney Plus main menu. It was just a shambles. You know, Jennifer Walters as a character was interesting-ish, but I wasn't a big fan that she could transform back and forth, because usually with She-Hulk, she stays in She-Hulk form. So, I don't know, there was just a few little jabs here and there. I thought it was a bit too much at times. I started to like the series, then I didn't. Daredevil was randomly thrown in a terrible costume, might I add. I don't know, it just seemed like a bit of a mess of a series in general. And that's why, for me, personally, it has to come at number 11 on my list. I'm awfully sorry. Coming in at number 10, we have got Miss Marvel. Yes, the story of Kamala Khan, which aired from the 8th of June to the 13th of July 2022. Now, to be fair, from here on out in this list, it's mostly starting to get into the average to good side now. There was parts of the Kamala Khan story I did quite like. I like the character of Kamala Khan. She's pretty much what sort of we are. Like, she's a fangirl of the Avengers, you know. She is just us, really, what we want to aspire to be, what we'd love to be. We'd love to be able to meet the Avengers or team up with the Avengers or be a superhero ourselves. And that's exactly what it is. And that's what the whole series is. It's about her. She gains these new powers and she's trying to figure out herself. She's trying to figure out her social life, you know, because she's still a young girl, but also trying to juggle these new powers, trying to help save the world, you know. And I love the Khan family. They are absolutely fantastic. In fact, Kamala Khan's dad actually makes an appearance in Daredevil Born Again, which is really, really cool. Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel's even got her own Funko Pop. But I thought the Miss Marvel, anyway, was a fairly decent show. There was elements that was a little bit boring. It did drag towards the middle. You know, Kamala goes back to see, like, where the bracelet came from and see some old relatives. And the pace does slow down a little bit from there. It's a lot better when she's in New York trying to figure out her powers and battling against foes. You know, it's a lot better then. So there's parts of the series that's a bit slow and dull, but there's other parts that are really, really good. And to be fair, Kamala Khan carries the series. So that's why it's at number 10 on the list. Okay, so before anyone says anything, this is the one that I was the most concerned about. Yes, Moon Knight is at number 9 on the list, which might seem really low to some people, but hear me out. So Moon Knight ran from the 30th of March to the 4th of May 2022. And the reason it's this low, I know it's really sad to say, but I really did enjoy the series. However, this is the only MCU show, despite everything I've said before, from Secret Invasion and Echo, that I struggled to finish. And that's just because of the topic area. I don't know what it was, but there was just something about it that I struggled to connect with it and struggled to get through it. It took me ages to watch episode 6. I finally watched episode 6, but it took me almost a year between episodes 5 and 6. Now, Oscar Isaac does a fantastic job doing this multiple personality stuff, you know, going between Stephen and Mark, you know, all those different personalities is really, really good. You know, the mythology, the Egypt stuff, the costumes. You know, I love the character of Stephen. I relate to Stephen in many, many ways. He's a fun-loving, goofball character. So then when he switches to Mark, you know, the more action hero, tough guy, you know, it's really, really cool to see their dynamic. The villain's all right as well. The locations, you know, the basic premise and plot is pretty decent. And it ends in an interesting way. And I look forward to see what we're going to do with this character going forward. But if I'm honest, I did struggle to finish the series. There's some great ideas, some really good emotional moments. It is a good series, don't get me wrong. It's just for me, I did struggle a little bit compared to other series. So that's why Moon Knight for me is this low at number 9 on the list. Coming in at number 9, the only series so far to have more than one season, and that is Loki. But in particular, we're talking about Loki Season 2, which ran from, I need to get my dates correct here, the 5th of October to the 9th of November 2023. Now, Season 1 of Loki was fantastic, but we'll get onto that later on down the line of the list. So Season 2 I was really hyped for. Is it still a good series? Yes, it is still a good series. Is it as good as Season 1? Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, it didn't really hit the mark that Season 1 did. The characters, while still strong, did feel like a slight diet version of what they were in Season 1. Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson, as a duo, you know, with Loki and Mobius, are fantastic together. Their chemistry is brilliant. But I just felt like there was something lacking this series. And when you've got extra plot lines thrown in, and extra characters thrown in that now are not being dealt with. I'm talking obviously about Kang with Jonathan Majors, because he features heavily in this series as a new Kang variant, because it was set up at the end of Loki Season 1, you know, to tie into the Kang dynasty, which is all not going to happen now, because obviously we've turned a complete tonal shift and doing Avengers Doomsday now. So it just makes this series have the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumanian feel, where it doesn't feel as relevant. However, Loki does go out on a bang. I'm really interested to see what happens to Loki going forward, because we know Tom Hiddleston is actually coming back in Avengers Doomsday, and based on his fate at the end of this series, I will be interested to see what happens going forward. Will he be a Loki variant, or will he be this exact Loki that manages to get out of the situation that he's in at the end of this series? It was lovely seeing characters like Sylvie again. I love Sylvie. I'm hoping one day to meet her at a Comic-Con. She was brilliant in Season 1 and was really nice in Season 2 as well. Obi, fantastic character, great little bit of comic relief. You know, and Jonathan Majors, for what it's worth, he did all right. But that's why Loki's a bit lower down at number 8 on the list, just behind Season 1. So, coming in then at number 7 is Agatha All Along, which ran from the 18th of September to October 30th, 31, 2024, so Halloween. Yeah, this was actually a really fun series in the end, which is why it's so high on my list. It had loads of different name changes. It was like Coven of Chaos and all sorts, and then obviously stuck with Agatha All Along. Focuses on one of my favourite characters from the WandaVision series, Agatha Harkness, and I thought it was brilliant. Episode 1 was like this spy thriller, police murder mystery. Agatha was trapped inside her own mind based on the events of WandaVision. Then when she's free, she goes to find her own coven and goes to go down this witch's road where there's lots of trials and spookies going on with this new companion teen who turns out to be one of Wanda's kids, who's Wiccan. It's fantastic. It's a fun series. The group that she travels with, so much fun. Each of them brings their own unique personality trait to the table. The visuals are stunning. The songs are pretty decent, especially the Ballad of the Witch's Road, which they sing in order to get on the Witch's Road in the first place, which I thought was really, really good. The finale episode is a little bit lackluster, if I'm being perfectly honest. And there's one or two trials that did feel a bit rushed. I have done individual reviews on the episodes of Agatha All Along, so if you want to check those out, feel free to know my full thoughts. But some of the trials are done really, really well. There's little nods to other Disney properties. and all sorts. You know, like there's a trial where Agatha is the Wicked Witch of the West and Teen is Maleficent. You know, there's little nods here and there. It's really, really good. Agatha is a fantastic character, and all the crew that she travels with are also really good. Teen is another fantastic character. You know, and the pacing is done really, really well. I thought it was enjoyable. I know some people, it wasn't their cup of tea. But for me personally, I would happily see Agatha All Along again. I have rewatched it, and I would love to see a season 2, although based on what happens by the end of the series, I would be interested to know how they would manage to pull that off. But that is why Agatha All Along is so high on the list, here at number 7. So at number 6, just missing out on the top 5 spot, is actually the most recent entry in the Disney Plus MCU shows, that being Daredevil Born Again. Yes, the return of Daredevil. Charlie Cox is back. And it was actually a pretty good series. Was it a flawless series? No. Was the pacing off at times? Yes. But was there a lot of fun? And was there the Daredevil that we all knew and loved? Yes, yes, yes. Brave decision to kill off Foggy within the first 5 to 10 minutes of the actual series, mind. But obviously they were setting up the fact that Daredevil, Matt Murdock, needs to go on this journey of finding himself again. He retires being Daredevil after going too far due to the death of Foggy, and has to find himself again. Same with Wilson Fisk and Kingpin, who is actually finally back on form. Kingpin is fantastic in this series. He's threatening. He's menacing, he's sinister, but also then when you've got his wife Vanessa, you've got that more sensitive side, the more manipulative side as well. And I thought that was really, really cool as well. Fantastic to see Frank Castle, the Punisher, come back again in this series. I thought that was really, really good. Like I said when I was talking about Miss Marvel earlier, we actually saw Kamala Khan's father in this, so linking together. Thought that was really, really cool. I just thought it was a fun series overall. You know, it was another 9-episode series, and yet the pacing never felt off. There never felt like there was real filler episodes. Every episode seemed to, you know, give something towards the future plot, and now we've got an interesting prospect where now Kingpin's obviously mayor and totally in charge, and that's going to have a major impact going forward in the MCU with curfews and vigilantes being illegal. What's going to happen with Spider-Man and characters like that, and Doctor Strange who are still about in New York? Who knows? But Daredevil Born Again, really good series, and that's why it's up at number 6 on my list. So at okay, and one that might actually shock some people, coming into the top 5, at number 5, we've actually got the Hawkeye series, which is like a Christmas series, because it came out on the 24th of November and ran until about the 22nd of December in 2021. So one of the first shows. I actually really like this show. I know a lot of people would say this is where the show started to teeter in terms of their quality, but I thought Jeremy Renner did a fantastic job as Hawkeye, and it was a really lovely, wholesome family series at the start. You know, he's gone to New York with his family. You know, he wants to spend Christmas with his family. He's sort of retired now after everything that happened with Endgame. The Avengers have sort of disbanded. He's one of the few surviving members of the original cast. You know, he just wants to live a peaceful life, and then he gets dragged in to a lot of mischief when he meets Kate Bishop, an upcoming archer, upcoming superhero, probably the next Hawkeye, who's in a spot of bother. He's also in a spot of bother based on what during the events of Endgame when he sort of went on a bit of a rampage. You know, he's sort of getting the consequences of his actions for that, you know. Kingpin is in this as well. Maya setting up Echo. You know, Yelena's back wanting to get revenge on Clint due to the death of her sister. You know, losing Black Widow, that you know, Natasha, that hurt her. There's a lot going on in this series. It is a really, really fun series. Very fast-paced, really good characters. You know, really fun. That's what I want to say about this series. It's a fun series from start to finish. I like it. Cosmo the dog, or Lucky, not Cosmo, Lucky is fantastic. But that's why Hawkeye is at this point on the list. Sorry about that. Right, at number 4 then, we have got Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which we obviously recently had Captain America Brave New World, so the results of this series have now actually been seen in a movie, because the whole point of Falcon and the Winter Soldier is about Sam taking on the mantle that Steve left for him, because at the start of the series, obviously Steve had left him the mantle of being the new Captain America after he decided to step down and went back in time to be with, you know, Peggy and all, but now Sam's sort of feeling that he's not really living up to Steve's footsteps. He doesn't feel like he deserves it, so questions himself, so decides not to take the mantle. So then they feel like they need to fill in the gap, so this new guy just strolls in, takes the serum, and becomes the new Captain America. Who's that? Well, that's John Walker, who becomes US agent. However, Bucky doesn't trust him, so they sort of got to keep an eye on him. He does do a few dodgy things through the series, and so obviously Sam comes to the realization that actually he should be the Captain America. He should be the next Captain America. Steve chose him for a reason, and it's sort of dishonoring him, so he needs to get the shield back. I love the series. I think it is a fairly good series, if I'm perfectly honest. All the characters are fun. Sam's fun, Bucky's fun, John Walker's fun. They're all a bunch of fun characters in this series. Sure, it might not be to everyone's cup of tea because it does sort of teeter into Secret Invasion territory, but it does it right, if you get what I mean. It does what Secret Invasion should have done. Secret Invasion did it wrong. Falcon Winter Soldier did it right. I quite liked it, and I loved all the fight scenes. And like I said, we've now seen Sam be the new Captain America, so we've got the results of the series. It's a fantastic series. Check it out. That's why it's at number 4 on my list. So taking the first podium spot, the bronze medal goes to Loki Season 1, which ran from the 9th of June 2021 to the 14th of July 2021. One of the earliest shows for Disney Plus's MCU, and Loki Season 1 was fantastic. Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, Mobius, Loki, like I said for Season 2, their relationship is fantastic. The character of Sylvie that gets introduced, seeing all the different other Loki variants. Richard E. Grant plays a Loki variant. There's Alligator Loki, there's like a Kid Loki. There's loads of different Lokis, and they're all brilliant. You know, the point is that Loki gets captured by the TVA and is put on trial for basically screwing up the timeline, pretty much. But this is a Loki taken from the 2012 Avengers movies, so everything after Avengers 1 for this particular Loki hasn't actually happened, although he is shown those events. So you get a bit of a different take on Loki. A Loki that didn't go through the character development we see in the films, but instead he goes through it in a different way through this series. And like I said, I love his relationship with everyone he comes across. But the ultimate goal is to reach He Who Remains, or the One Who Remains, which we find out is actually a variant of Kang, because this was supposed to set up the whole Kang saga that was coming, because Kang's then in Season 2 of Loki. Kang was supposed to be in a Season 2 of Moon Knight. Obviously, we had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We were going to get the Kang dynasty. That doesn't end up happening now, or is not going to end up happening now. So this series does lead to something that we're not gonna see the full fruition of that, so it kind of makes it a bit pointless, but it's still a fun series overall. I still really like it, and it goes to show that Marvel's creativity could spread out to the TV shows, and so it did going forward, and that's why we've got so many Marvel TV shows. Like I said, Loki Season 1 is really good, and keep in mind, Loki is the only show so far that has a Season 2. So that is why Loki deserves to be on a podium. Bronze medal coming in at number 3. So just missing out on the gold medal, coming in second place is Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which aired from the 29th of January 2025 to the 19th of February 2025. So it's quite a recent show, and yeah, it's the only animated show on this list. Now, this might just be my bias of Spider-Man talking, but I thought this was a fantastic series. This was a 10-episode series where you get to see the early days of Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. And it sort of goes on some of the events of the MCU. Like, some of the events have actually happened. The Sokovia Accords have happened from Civil War. You know, we've had the Chitauri invasion with the Avengers defending New York. All this sort of thing has happened, but obviously Peter wasn't Spider-Man at the time. But they do incorporate other heroes. Iron Man cameos in the series. Daredevil cameos in the series, who's voiced by Charlie Cox. Doctor Strange is in this series. You know, we get a new take on some villains. We get the build-up of Tombstone, the rise of Doc Ock. We see Norman and Harry Osborn. We get a tease for Season 2 that potentially we could be doing a symbiote arc. There's a new version of Dr. Connors, a female Dr. Connors, Carla Connors. It's fantastic. All the characters are lovable in this series. Every plot line was great from start to finish. I was thoroughly engaged. There wasn't an episode that I thought was boring. I loved it, and I definitely recommend checking it out. The episodes are a decent length as well. They're not too long, not too short. They're just right to keep you engaged from start to finish. All the characters are brilliant. I highly recommend you check out Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and that's why it just misses out, coming in at number 2 on the list. So finally, coming in at number 1 for my favourite TV show of the MCU, it is WandaVision, the first one that came out. It is fantastic. It is fun from start to finish. Wanda and Vision are brilliant characters. Agatha Harkness, again, if you saw what I said about Agatha all along, she's a fantastic secret villain. All the characters that return from previous films are amazing. I love the different time periods that we get to see, you know, the 50s, 60s, 70s, the 80s, you know, the modern times. I love this big mystery, you know, what's actually going on with Wanda, why she trapped everyone here, what she worried about, what she's scared of. Will Vision find out who is this secret villain, which turns out to be Agatha in the end? It's just really, really cool and such a fun series. It is entertaining from start to finish, and it has serious consequences going forward in the MCU, which we've still not seen the full ramifications from because we still don't know what's going on with Vision. But like I said, fantastic series. Had to get it when it came out on Steelbook. Highly recommend you check it out. If there's only one MCU show that you watch from Disney Plus, I would say check WandaVision out. It's fantastic. But that is why WandaVision, for me anyway, is my favourite Disney Plus MCU show. And there we have it. That is my full ranking of all the Disney Plus MCU shows that I'm going to add onto my list, from worst to best, in my personal opinion. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please like it by giving it a thumbs up and comment down below. What is your list of your personal favourite Disney Plus MCU shows? Does it differ to mine? I'm sure it does, and that is okay. So put in the comments maybe, what's your top 3 or top 5 MCU shows? And subscribe if you are new. But for now, this is the Nerdy Grill signing off. I hope you've had an amazing day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.